Fast cars, detectives, zombies, Helen Hunt, massive shoulder pads. In this episode of Beyond Graves and Stars, King Street Cinemas, James Rowe returns to chat about Trancers and its sequel Trancers 2, The Return of Jack Deth. Slick back your hair, don't be a squid, as we go back to 1984. James, welcome back. You were the guest on the first couple of episodes of this podcast.
Yes. Hi, everybody.
He's back. We done Candyman.
We did.
The whole franchise. And now we're tackling Trancers, which is one you suggested.
Yeah. Well, you said think of the sci-fi series of movies, and straight away off the top of my head I went Trancers.
Yeah, and you'd only seen the first movie.
Only seen the first one, because I thought this was kind of the idea of the podcast, was to get people that had seen the first of a series, a franchise, but hadn't seen the others.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And this, I thought it was 4 movies, but it turns out there's 6.
Yeah.
So we're in for a challenge ahead. I'd only seen the first 3. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the first 2.5.
2.5, yeah.
Because there's a mini movie in between.
Yeah, between 1 and 2, yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
We're going to start with, in 1984, the original movie. What's your history with the film? When did you first see it?
Oh, okay. So, I mean, my history with the movie is really a history of the Empire Pictures, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because I definitely had not seen it as a kid, but I had seen it in the video shop, like the box.
Yeah.
And always been like, most of the Empire films been like, oh, wow, that looks really cool.
Which box? Was that just a helmet on the cover, or was it a different poster?
So I always remember it being really smoky, and there's him,
yes.
And it just
he's like coming out the door.
Yeah, door. Yeah, it looks so 80s, just pure 80s, like smoke and flashy, and everything looks cheap, yet it's trying to look expensive.
Yeah, which kind of is what the film. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say the film looks cheap, but it is cheap.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah,
it is classic B movie stuff.
Yeah, I think I wicked it and stuff, and I couldn't find out. But on a podcast I was listening to, it said that it was $400,000.
Yeah, I mean clearly, well under $1 million. There's without question, it's one of those. It's one of them. Well, you've got to say from any kind of standard, really, it's a B movie, so it's going to be cheap, right?
Yeah.
And the great thing about their movies is that you understand that going in, and that plays part of the whole, the appeal. The appeal to these movies are that they don't look, Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Excuse me, I will say I've got a bit of a cold.
Yeah.
I do apologise. So yeah, my first experience with this movie was the same. I'd seen the poster. I can't specifically remember physically seeing it in the video shop, but I recognised the cover, several covers of it, in fact.
Yeah.
And then I reckon it was about 10, 12 years ago, 88 Film released a Blu-ray of it.
Right.
And I just went out and bought it. I think I must have read a review and thought, this seems my bag.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't tell you when I saw it. Actually saw it. But it wasn't one of the earlier ones for me of the Empire films. I'd seen a lot before I'd got to this one.
Yeah.
But it was a long time ago now that I saw it.
I also had it in my head that it was a PG certificate, but it isn't. It's a 15.
Yeah.
And it's the only Empire or New Moon, which
New Moon, I mean, we could talk a little bit about the whole Charles Band thing.
But it's the first and only one to be a PG-13 in America.
Right. Okay.
And I think that's to do with when that certification came in,
absolutely.
Which was that year, 1984.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was Empire Movies was his cinematic releases to start with, wasn't it?
I'm not sure about that. He had. Maybe for this company, for Empire, but he'd certainly done films before.
Yeah, which was under just his name, wasn't it? Charles Band Productions.
Yeah, that's right. He had films like Parasite, which was like Demi Moore's first film.
Yeah. Which is worth a watch. I think.
Indeed, yeah.
And he was trying for years to make a sequel to that, actually, and never happened.
Yeah, that's right.
Around the time of doing this.
Yeah, I think that was kind of what his whole thing was trying to get that going, and couldn't.
And then this became one of his many franchises, and he has said it's the favourite of his movies.
Right, that he directed. Because
he produced about 700.
Many others that people have seen that maybe people associate with him with being the director, with Charles Band being the director, which he's not. So sort of like Reanimator and stuff like that, which, production. Yeah. I mean, produced many classics of the 80s.
Yeah, he directed a few.
A few, yeah.
Did he direct possibly the first Puppet Master?
No, again, he didn't. Not director.
That's one that his name's really associated.
Exactly. But again, it's because he owns the company that brought it out.
Yeah, and then there became Full Moon.
Yeah.
Which is still going fairly strong. There's a Full Moon app and stuff now.
Absolutely, and they have a
stream service.
Yeah, stream service. I was going to say.
I had that for a and went a bit mental because it was all I was watching, and it's all B movies and some minor filth.
Yeah,
and there's some good. There's some real good stuff that they've made, but you've got to filter through it.
Yeah,
and later things which. Like the Ginger Dead Man and Evil Bong and stuff, I'm not such a big fan of.
Right.
I'm more into this era.
Yeah.
But then watching those movies, it is kind of fun because he uses a lot of the same cast, and it's fun to see them again.
Yeah.
But a lot of the movies are just proper trash.
Yeah.
Moments, but this, for me, when I think Charles Band, I think of the 80s.
Absolutely.
And early 90s, really.
Yeah.
Some great stuff, and I'd consider this up there. If not, I would agree with him. It is his best film.
Yeah, I'd say that it's definitely the best that he's directed.
Yeah.
Without question.
And a really good job, I think. Do you want to quickly summarise the plot?
Yeah, okay. So the film is a film noir, but 80s style.
Yeah.
So we follow a detective who's kind of come to the end of his detecting. He's had a hard time. Wife's been killed. He's getting old, looking all haggard and that.
Yeah.
And as far as he's concerned, he's killed the guy who has killed his wife and is the main antagonist throughout his life, I'd say, by the looks of things, who's a guy called Whistler who has capability of controlling people by hypnotism to basically do his bidding, which is basically take over the world, just super villainy type stuff. Evil shiz. Yeah. But turns out Whistler's still alive.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. And they've somehow found a way to travel through time.
Yeah.
And
quite an ingenious way as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just to go back, this is the future. So we're 200 or so years.
22,047.
Yeah. So a couple of hundred years into the future kind of thing.
Yeah.
Set in Los Angeles, but Los Angeles is mostly underwater now, or at least the city of Los Angeles is underwater. You get the idea, dystopian kind of thing, sci-fi, whatever. You've seen it before, looks great.
Yeah, it really does as well.
But the film is mostly set in 1984.
Yes, which is a clever plot.
We'll see later on with Masters of the Universe.
Exactly, that's what I was about to say. It's a good way to get round lots of expensive sets and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But when we do see the future, there's some flying cars and that sort of thing, which quite well done. Looks very Blade Runner.
I was going to say, often people will like to think of it similar to Terminator.
Yeah.
But it's more Blade Runner, really, in look.
And some really nice matte paintings as well.
Yeah,
when you see
excellent. Classic stuff from the period.
Looks great.
Yeah, it does. For the budget that it was clearly on, it looks fantastic.
Yeah,
really does. So he's got to go back in time to get Whistler because Whistler's gone back in time to kill the ancestors of the people in charge.
Yeah.
Of the
senators.
Senators, governors, commission, whatever, however you want to. I can't remember exactly how they call themselves, but the people that are in charge of Los Angeles or whatever it is they call it. Because I don't think they call it Los Angeles. Do they call it Lost City or something like that?
Yeah, it's whatever the name is of the mini film. It's that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's Lost City.
Lost City, yeah.
But I just say Los Angeles, sort of thing. You know, that's the kind of thing. So, and that's where he goes back to in 1984. So we get the classic 1984 period, LA kind of scene going on, and that's it. And he meets up with a lady called Lena, who turns out to be Oscar winner Helen Hunt.
Yeah.
But before
one of
she
her
was
early
Oscar
films,
winner.
she was 19 when they filmed it.
I think
19,
so.
no,
Yeah,
20.
yeah, something like that.
20. And at one point, she says the character that she's younger than 21 because they as a baseball card from 63.
Yeah.
And she says I wasn't even born then.
Yeah.
So she's very young.
Which I did look up afterwards to see when Helen Hunt was born, and she was born in 1963.
Yeah, so she's basically playing her age, a couple of years younger.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. She's very, very sassy, very streetwise.
Yeah.
She clearly likes punk rock music.
Yeah.
And all that kind of thing. So you get that element of
Did
LA.
we say how he goes back in time?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's kind of strange. I find it hard to follow, and I think it's good that you don't try too hard to think about it too much because it is quite crazy. But yeah, it's just a serum or something that knocks you out, so your body stays in the present where you're from, but your mind goes back in time into one of your ancestors.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah, it reminds me, the closest thing it reminds me to, this is something quite original about this movie, the way they go back in time. The closest thing it reminds me to is Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
Because they take over.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, there's a serum and you go into an ancestor and he goes back into, is it Phil?
Phil, he's a photographer, maybe?
Photographer, he's a bit of a ladies' man.
Bit of a lady sleazy kind of guy,
Yeah.
but not someone that women don't like because he ends up sort of waking up as Phil just after he's had a sort of one-nighter with our Helen Hunt.
Yeah.
So and she enjoyed that. She makes it very clear that she enjoyed her time with him. So he's not. We're meant to think of him as kind of like, oh yeah, he's a cool guy that ladies like, not a sleaze bag who's trying to get women.
Yeah, very it's that Mahoney type character. He likes the ladies, but the ladies like him.
He's charming, all that. Where Jack Deth isn't necessarily so much. No. He's a bit because he's a cop. And he's had a very hard time with death of the wife and all of that. He's not. He's a
bit bitter.
He's a bit bitter, yeah. But he lightens up. He lightens up quite a fair bit.
So he's a trooper who tracks down these.
Yeah, they're called Trancers, right? So that's the name of the film, right? Is Trancers because which they mentioned very early on. It's kind of a weird. It's a great title for a movie. It's fantastic. It's really like, ooh, what's that all about? But why? I mean, the reason why they're called that obviously is because they're kind of in a trance.
Yeah,
but
they're zombie-like.
Yeah, zombie-like, but they're not really. It's a bit of a weird thing because most of the time they're just like a normal person, sort of like hiding in plain sight kind of thing, and then they turn into these kind of savages, basically.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird kind of thing. It works, but you've kind of got to leave your brain somewhere else, not think about it.
The opening scene, he's after one of these, and he's in a coffee shop and they can't find it, and it turns out it's the waitress, the last person you'd expect. And she goes full. They turn to look like zombies. Yeah, and that's how you introduced to it through this scene, which is narrated in noir style.
Indeed.
But it's Tim Thomerson, isn't it?
It is actor Tim Thomerson. Been many movies. Never. Other than this, I'm sure he had played leads, maybe. But this is I always remember him as being more of a supporting actor.
Yeah, he's been supporting role in some bigger films. Very big films.
Yeah.
And he worked with Charles Band a lot, went on to be in the Dollman franchise after this. Yeah. Originally stand-up comedian.
Indeed.
Yeah. And very, very likeable rogue type.
Yes.
Bogart type character.
Absolutely.
In this. And you can see why he picked him as the lead because it's a face you'd recognise but not a big name. Yeah. And he's well known for these movies now. I think he was in, we'll say there were 6 of them. And he was in 5. Yeah. And he loved the role as well.
Oh, clearly. If you're doing it 5 times, you've got to love it, right?
Yeah. And very charismatic, funny. And that's why he's a bit like a likeable Dennis Leary in many ways, I'd say. Yes. But the other thing is, when I first watched this, it was over a decade ago, I assumed he was like early 50s. He's not. He was 37 when they.
Yeah, he does look. Like I said, we were saying just before we started the podcast. I thought he was like mid 40s at the earliest.
I think in the future he is made to look a bit older.
Sure.
with his slick darker hair.
He's got a slick dark hair. He's got a scar, which he loses, of course, when he goes back and becomes Phil.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because he goes back to become Phil, who is the same. It's the same actor, same physique. Where other people that go back in time, well, not all. The Whistler, I think, goes back as the same. But other people that we see, because they're not the only one. They're not. They're other people. They're ancestors. We're not going to look exactly the same. But of course, Tim Thomerson's one is exactly. The same.
I love when they do things like that in films. So it's great. And so he's sent back to 1984. Whistler is a police chief.
Yeah,
as a police chief. So basically,
well done him.
He's got the whole of the police on his side.
Exactly. This is okay. So the way he turns people, I would say, is hypnotism, but he doesn't really go into it too much of how that works. You never see it either really. But we are explained from Jack that there are people with weak minds and strong minds, and people with weak minds, Whistler can just turn. But if you've got a strong mind, he can't do it. No?
And Helen Hunt has got a strong mind.
Of course, obviously, and so's Jack.
Yeah.
So
that it's all you have. This is a 76-minute film.
Yeah.
A hell of a lot happens.
Indeed.
I love the.
Oh, it's a Christmas movie as well.
Oh yeah, it's set around Christmas, which some people would say is a Christmas movie, and so
it's got Santa in it.
Yeah, it's got Santa in it. Helen Hunt's working as an elf.
That's right.
In a Santa, and he's got to get her to work, which is a great way to show a bit of comedy because. She wakes up around his house and before Phil was promised to get her to work and he doesn't know where she works or anything.
Yeah.
I love the fact he can drive because there's flying cars in the future.
Right, so they make again. They give you little hints at why he's capable of doing these kind of things because he's fascinated, absolutely loves the past and is a collector of things from the past. Yeah. So clearly, with that in mind, you go so he's got probably some rudimentary understanding of how cars from the past worked.
Yeah. And the character, much like the actor, seems to be having fun in the film.
Yes.
And so he drops her off at work, and the Santa turns into one of the Trancers.
Oh, indeed.
And a really fun scene in the mall. And there's a line. One of the women says something like... it's all kicking off at the North Pole.
That's it.
Yeah. Brilliant. And there are some great lines.
I should have written them down because I was rewatching the film. I was like, that's a really good line. But I was just enjoying watching the movie.
And this is one of those. It's so much fun. And when he's getting ready, he seems in no rush. He wants to get to work, and he slicks back his hair. Yeah. She's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Dry hair's for squids."
Yeah. So squids are what you call either nerds, stuff like that, but he will also call Trancers that as well. So I'm guessing people with weak minds are squids. Yeah. But what is that? I mean, is that like dry hair is for squids? Yeah, well, brilliant.
I'm sure in the commentary that is a quote from another movie,
probably
that Charles Band likes.
Right.
So he's put that in there.
Yeah.
But it's now probably more attached with this movie than whatever it was from before.
Sure.
So it all kicks off with Santa.
Yeah.
And one thing we haven't mentioned is before he goes back in time, he's given him James Bond style a watch that can slow down time.
Oh, the watch that slows down time for 10 seconds.
Yes.
Oh, amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that scene because he can only do it the once in this movie.
Yeah.
In the first movie, he can only do it the once, and that scene, which happens fairly early on, you think it might be a thing for the finale, but it's not.
Well, you say that because they use it in the finale as well.
It's true because he comes back and gives him another one. Yeah,
because he can use it. Excuse me.
Another character does
once per time.
Yeah,
and he does get taken back to the future,
yes,
so to speak.
He does.
Made before Back to the Future, I'll add.
Yeah.
And so he does it the first time to save Helen Hunt from Whistler.
Yeah, from the gunshots that are fired by the police, who are in control by Whistler.
Really fun scene, and it is just slowed down.
Yeah, it is great. It's proper 80s silliness. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. So, I think... I don't know. I really enjoyed watching it.
It's a fun film. There's nothing about it that's slow or draggy or bogged down with too much bits, extra padding. There's none of that.
And also nothing, some things are skimmed over.
Very much.
Nothing seems left out.
Yeah.
It does explain everything enough.
Enough, yes. Like I say, if you leave your brain somewhere else and don't think about it, just accept that this is how it is in the movie. It's great.
And Yeah, and then after the site, there's a few sort of set pieces when they're after the Trancers. One in a tanning salon, which is really 80s.
Oh yes.
And obviously the guy who works in a tanning salon is going to have a weak mind, isn't he? Because he's that's a really fun scene. And then there's another one in a punk club, like a punk metal club, where a band is playing a punk version of Jingle Bells.
That's right. Yeah. Brilliant.
And that's you get a lot of this. Like, if you think of Terminator and other movies like that, they'll always go into a punk club.
Yeah.
The club looks great. An ex-boyfriend of Lena's is in there, who is angry because she's still got some of his tapes.
Yes.
Which I think is so 80s.
Yeah.
That character played a big dumb idiot, but likable and funny. Likeable for a villain. You know?
Yeah. Well, he's not really. He's a villain, but not really a villain. He's just an idiot.
Yeah. But the whole thing looks good. It is 80s, but it's exaggerated 80s in the way that Jack Deth's got massive shoulder pads, for example.
Yeah.
It's like it's a real 80s future. Then when you get in the 80s, it's like as 80s as possible. Reminds me of when the shots in LA and stuff looks very Beverly Hills Cop, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Great score. We haven't mentioned that. Which normally his brother done the music.
Yeah, Richard Band, but not on this one.
No, and it does sound a little bit Terminator of its time.
Yeah,
sort of the synth stuff. I think it sounds great.
Yeah, just cold synthy. That sci-fi sound. Good. Think John Carpenter. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
Tangerine Dream.
Yeah. So we'll quickly with one thing we haven't talked about is the character they're going back to save.
Yes.
Who is the ancestor? Because two of the ancestors do get killed.
That's right. So it's just down. There's just got one left. I always did think what really would happen if they all die, if that one died, and then there were no one in charge.
He'd take power in the future, I'm guessing. He'd go back and take over.
I guess so, but why couldn't there be other people that could be in charge,
Because
like deputies?
Everybody else is weak.
That may be it. Yeah, exactly.
So and it's Hap, isn't it? Played by Biff Mannard, who is another comedian turned actor, who is a former baseball player who has now become a homeless drunk.
On Skid Row.
Yeah, and when we first encounter him, this guy is an alcoholic. It's probably the sort of character you probably wouldn't do now, because he does sort of make light of alcoholism.
Very much so.
But he's a funny drunk, and he's playing baseball with other homeless people, and they're having a whale of a time.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's having a great time on Skid Row. I mean, so realistic.
Yeah, no one's had as much fun on Skid Row since Little Shop of Horrors, you know. But as we encounter him, he's playing baseball and having fun, and he's drunk. And basically, they have to save him because he's the last one, and they do, and they end up he ends up helping them. And in the finale, he uses his baseball skills against Whistler, doesn't he?
That's right, he does.
So well done.
Because he's a pitcher.
Yeah, he's a pitcher.
So he's good at throwing things.
Now, one of the reasons, I don't know how much research you've done, one of the reasons Bill Mannard plays a drunk so well is because he was drunk on set all the time.
Well, do you know what? I didn't know that. I didn't. But I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, and he was friends with Tim Thomerson, who basically guided him through. And I listened to the audio commentaries, and they do say he's drunk through this and the second one, which he's in as well. Yeah. But they loved him. Yeah. He's no longer with us. But he'd ad-lib a lot, and just apparently just a nice guy to be around, but he had the drinking problems. And I imagine it might be like written for him in the way that, you know, Charles Hawtrey's roles in Carry On films changed as he became an alcoholic. When he was older, they always wrote an alcoholic character, so it's easier for them to play. Sure. But I think it's actually a kind of nice that they've written it for him. Do you know what I mean? It's they always clearly like the guy, and he's good. I think he brings. Yeah, he's quite light-hearted anyway, but he's a bit of a comedy relief because when you look at Jack Deth, he's a funny character, but straight. Yeah, he's a Frank Drebin almost.
He's not the fool guy, or the funny guy. Yeah, he's the straight. You know, he's the cool straight act.
But he is funny. There's no lines he says.
Sure, because he's a fish out of water. But I've forgotten his name. Ashby.
Howard Ashby.
Yeah, Ashby. He's like he's kind of like a bit of a fool guy in a way, I suppose. But at the same time, he's got the history of being someone that was respected and admired.
Yeah.
And you could still see that in him. Yeah. Like when he's shown the picture of him, like the baseball card, and he sees himself in the part, he's looking at a picture of himself in the past. Yeah. And you could see there's actually some actual acting there where he's like going, oh yeah, that's who I used to be, sort of thing, which is good because it's believable when it makes you go, you feel sympathy for the character. And you really do notice that, I think, in the film, because you could have got someone that just didn't have any acting ability at all, who was just playing a drunk, which this guy clearly isn't. He knows what he's doing. He's playing a role and he's playing it well. So
and there is a good bit of chemistry with him and Jack Deth, I think.
I think so. I think you can see that clearly, and it makes sense that they bring him back, which they do for the second, which is in the second movie. Yeah,
because in this he doesn't show up till near the end. He's throughout the second one, which we'll talk about soon.
Yeah.
Another character. Well, first I want to mention two of the senators are played by quite well-known actors.
Yeah.
Anne Seymour, who was an actor in probably the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
And one of her last roles, I'm guessing.
Yeah, must have been.
And apparently she really struggled with some of the dialogue on set because she wasn't, really with it, so to speak.
Yeah.
But still, the performance looks good.
It does, yeah.
And Richard Hurd as the chairman, Chairman Spencer.
Yeah.
Who Richard Hurd? I mean, I know him. The face is so familiar. He was in T.J. Hooker.
Yeah.
That's how I know him. But he's in so many movies and big movies as well. One of those faces you just recognise.
Yeah.
And I think they got some of these cast members in. Something to do with Charles Brand's father knew them.
Oh, probably Albert. He has history in the business from going well back. So
sort of helping each other out, friends.
Yeah.
Some really established character actors. Yeah. They tried to get Betty Davis for the Anne Seymour role, and I haven't heard she turned it down. I heard she had other stuff going on, so that'd be interesting.
That would have been good, yeah. But you can tell that. You can see that there's clearly history on set. In the sense of like people know people, because you're not going to get these names without there being sort of that kind of relationship going on, which is good. It just shows these are people working outside of the system here on this movie. This is not Hollywood, but it's people that have worked in Hollywood and whatever, and who are doing working for a friend kind of thing.
And we're going to have to mention probably my favourite character from the film, who is the boss of Jack Deth.
Okay, McNulty.
Yes, McNulty. The Poundland Robert De Niro. Played by, is it Art Lafleur?
Yeah, that is the guy.
I don't think I've seen him in anything else. He's been in stuff.
I have, and I never remember what they are.
Yeah,
it's so annoying.
He's a face, but I think he would have done a lot of TV.
Certainly, but there are a couple of movies where I definitely have seen him in, but I can't remember. Probably after this.
Yeah.
I feel maybe later,
that's
like
true,
maybe in the late 90s or something.
Yeah,
but I can't quite.
He's in Field of Dreams. He's in The Blob. He's in War Games.
No, that's the one. The Blob. That was one that I was thinking of. So 88, not that long after.
He's also no longer with us. He's in lots of classic films and the Sylvester Stallone film Oscar.
Right.
Man with One Red Shoe, Man of the House with Chevy Chase. That's what I've known from, I reckon. Loads. Lots of straight-to-video stuff as well, like Beethoven sequels and that sort of thing. But I like this guy. I like that he's the boss cop, so to speak.
Yeah.
He's very you do a job, you do it now.
That kind of thing.
But funny.
Yeah.
And one of the jokes for me in this movie that really works is he goes back in time to basically talk to Jack Deth and communicate with him. But his ancestor is, what do you say, a 10-year-old girl?
I think something like that in the first film,
Yeah, and the girl does the role superbly, I think.
Yeah, she's great.
She young actress, plays this tough boss cop, so to speak. Really well. It's funny. They do the joke a few times throughout the film. It doesn't wear thin, I don't think. I think they do it just enough. And interestingly, the same actress comes back. Is it 7 years later for the sequel?
Yeah, that's right. She's now and also in the short film, which is in between,
which is made in 88.
88. So we see her growing up, basically.
So I think one of the things in this movie that works in this movie is the likable characters. Really, we didn't really mention, but the villain he's so well done. He's a little known actor who, even on the commentary for the movie, they're like, I never saw it. The director says, and Tim Thomerson says, we never saw him after the film or anything. He just showed up, done it, and went.
Disappeared.
And there's not much on him. He was in some episodes of like Mission Impossible and things like that.
Right.
So my theory is he was a theatre actor, possibly.
Yeah, again, I don't really know, but maybe.
Yeah.
Perfectly honest, I didn't think he was that good.
Did you not?
No.
I think he had the face of the villain.
He certainly looked good, but I didn't. I felt like, I don't know. It's hard to describe like my real feelings about it, because I just feel the feeling is almost like he, not that he doesn't know what he's doing, but that he's almost in another movie or something. Like for me, it just didn't feel like it was the right fit. I don't know why. I don't know why I feel that way. I just do. Yeah, it's really odd. I also feel that way about the bad guy in the second film as well, which is played by a different actor and isn't the same character, but is very similar. Yeah, right.
I think maybe it's the writing of the character.
Maybe
it's because there's not much to him apart from he wants to rule the world.
Yeah, I just don't think he's charismatic or good enough, or something.
I think he's menacing, and that's why it works. But possibly that sort of menacing look and the persona he puts across would have worked better as, say, a henchman. Yeah. Opposed to the actual.
Yeah, maybe.
I like him, but I do see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think possibly it could be to do with the character.
Yeah. I just wasn't necessarily scared of him, really. If
so you say you probably. Or if it was someone like Michael Ironside or something, it was more of a...
maybe. And you're right, and you are right that there isn't enough information for why he's doing what he's doing, other than he just wants to do it.
He's a bad guy.
Just a bad guy. And I don't know. There's not enough. He's not theatrical enough on screen. Like the presence isn't. It's not like Skeletor, right? Yeah. Where he's like really chewing it up, And I think that would have been better. That would have been more interesting for me, and I would have been more appealing for the kind of film that it was. I thought it was a little bit too low key. Yeah, maybe.
I suppose as well that it's been some years since I saw this film, and if you'd have asked me before rewatching it about the villain, I'd have probably been like, don't remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the thing where I'm just like, I just feel like it's almost an afterthought. Yeah. But the idea of him is interesting. Like what, the fact that he can hypnotize people, he turns people into these kind of zombie type characters and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's interesting. It's like, ooh, how does he do that? Yeah. But you don't get into any of that at all in the film, which again, like I said, I'm fine with, because what you do get in the film is really good. It's good, solid stuff. But
as you say, the length of the film as well.
Yeah, it helps. Certainly helps.
And it hasn't. By all accounts, it wasn't edited down much either.
No,
there's very few deleted scenes or anything, so it was always meant to be this length.
Yeah, well, it's made B movie in mind, which is always going to be a short film.
Yeah, and they basically stretched every penny they had, or every cent, and done what they could. And I think it looks a bigger budget film than it is. You can tell it's a low budget film. But the production value is pretty good, and there's lots of scenes, which is probably a lot of it was probably guerrilla filmmaking in New York, where they maybe just went out and shot. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, they say in the commentary that it was easier back then. You got pushed and went and done it.
Yeah.
So it was done properly, but it was easier then, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
it would have been.
And I don't think you. This is another reason I'm doing this podcast, because you don't really get movies like this anymore of this level. You'll get. Big budget films made for streaming, and then you'll get big budget films, and then cheap, CGI sci-fi channel movies. But not the cheaper films are mainly a lot of dialogue, then a bit of CGI at the end. Whereas this is constant fun. There's action scenes all the way through it, and brilliant performances.
Yeah, it moves at a good pace. Yeah. Like I say, it doesn't feel stilted or like they're padding stuff. They're padding the time up with just things that aren't important or seemingly just there for whatever, that are not part of the plot. The whole thing just moves really nicely.
Yeah.
So,
And and
I'd recommend it.
Yes, I'd recommend it a lot.
Yeah.
And I will mention as well that the beginning of April is getting a reissue. It's getting a 4K and Blu-ray double pack release. I think it's actually a triple disc with a disc of extras.
Oh,
yeah.
And a poster.
I hope so. Yeah. Postcards and stuff.
Yeah.
All the stuff carried over from the 88 film release years ago. And then there's loads more special features and stuff. There's loads. Yeah. So even though I've got the 88 film one, we all know I'll be buying this one as well.
Yeah.
You know.
If it's got extras, then.
Yeah, it's well with nice packaging and stuff.
Yeah.
So quality 80s fun. If we just stop for a moment to catch our breaths, and then we'll talk about the short film briefly, and then the sequel. Yeah. So we'll do that now, and then we'll be back.
Woo!
Okay, so in 1988 there was a short movie made called Trancers City of Los Angeles, which Lost Angeles, not Los Angeles.
There you go.
Lost Angeles.
Lost, that's the one.
Which was meant as part of a anthology movie called Pulse. With
Pulse Pounders, I think, or something like that.
Which is there was a short movie made, a short follow-up sequel to another. Is it Dragon Master or something like that?
Dungeon Master.
Another Charles Mann produced movie, I believe.
He might. Do you know what? I think he might have directed that one, or been one of the directors on it, because it might have been several directors, but I'm not quite sure because it's an anthology film. Was it? I'm pretty sure Dungeon Masters was an anthology movie.
Yeah, it was. That was the one with members of Wasp in.
Yeah.
And Wasp.
Wow.
So yeah, I have seen.
You have. You've got it.
Yeah, I have. I've got it in a box set.
Yeah.
Of awesome movies. So we'll quickly just talk about this. It's a little story, basically, which
so it's a 25-ish minute long thing. So it's a little short.
Where someone else goes back to the past to kill Jack Deth.
Yeah, not a trancer and not involved in Whistler's movement. Someone that Jack had put away in jail before all the trancer stuff had happened.
Yeah, and when we go back, he's having a row with Helen Hunt.
Yeah,
back.
She's having a domestic.
Excuse me, a big one, and she leaves.
Yeah. So she's in opening part of the short, and then they're not seen again until right at the end.
Yeah, where he resolves everything and then goes back a little bit before and sorts things out so they don't split up.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a sitcom feel to it, I must say, the whole setup and everything.
Yeah, we've been around the time she started doing Mad About You.
93.
Did she do that in 93?
That's when she started doing Mad About You.
Okay. I suppose it was, because she started, so it was a lot before that, but she was doing Mad About You when they made the third movie, which she's still in.
Yeah.
But by all accounts, she enjoyed doing it. We didn't really touch on her until about the first one, but she's really good in these movies.
Yeah, she's solid. If you didn't know who she was, and let's say you went back and you were there in 1984, 85, whenever you first saw Trancers, got to see Trancers, I'm sure you would think, she's good.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go, forget about her then.
Yeah, well, she's got a memorable role in the dance classic Girls Just Want to Have Fun, hasn't she? Where she's
come out 86, was it?
Yeah, around the same time as, and then she plays younger than she does in Trancers.
Yeah,
and she's the standout. I know it's a Sarah Jessica Parker film, but she's the standout, crazy best friend. Yeah, and I think that film probably elevated her nearly as much as this did.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
because that was probably a bigger release. Not saying a bigger hit, but a bigger release, if you see what I mean.
Sure.
And then, she comes back for the second one, which we'll talk about properly now. Yeah. Which was a straight-to-video release in 1991, which came out to pretty poor reviews. It finds the characters as many years later.
Yeah, well, I think sort of in time with the the movies themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So So 84 first movie, 91. Yeah. The second movie, and that's when it's set.
Yeah. So, do you want to quickly summarise this one?
I can kind of remember it. So, McNulty, boss detective, he's been told that Whistler has got a brother.
Yeah.
Our villain from the first movie actually has a brother who is continuing on with Whistler's, menace.
There is a joke about that as well, because Jack Deth says, "Where'd he come from?"
Yeah,
is it in a kind of
exactly
Die Hard way?
Exactly. It's a okay. So this now is what's existing in our universe.
Can I just add as well that if my brother was an evil, I'm not saying he is, but if my brother was an evil fella trying to take over the world, and he was put a stop to, I wouldn't continue it. No, I'd steer away. Yeah, but and I'm British, like most of these villains.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you would have thought that they'd be working together. If it's something that they both want. But anyway, anywho, so I think his name's Waldo.
Waldo, yes.
And so yes, I mean Noel's got to go back into the past and let Jack know. But there's also more. Because, of course, that would just be basically the plot of the first one. There has to be extra steps, don't there?
Yes.
And the extra steps are, that Jack's wife, Alice, is not dead. Because what they've done is they've gone back in time, just before she was going to get killed, to tell her, hey, we've got to send you back in time to do a little job for us.
Yeah.
Da-da.
And so there she is.
So she is. She's back in time.
But it goes wrong because her ancestor is in a mental
asylum.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, kind of like, not that it is exactly like, but it did make me think of 12 Monkeys.
True. Yeah. I will say as well that there's a lot of terms used in this film you wouldn't use anymore. So if I accidentally say any of these, I'm only referencing the film.
Sure.
They say the words loony bin and things like that a lot.
Yes.
But it was of its time. 91.
It was 91.
34 years ago.
People were pretty lax when it came to mental health.
Yeah. But, in this, it's taken more serious than, say, films like Crazy People and stuff.
Absolutely. So we spent some time in mental correctional facilities because it seems to be a place, I'm guessing, for criminally insane, maybe?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Because it comes across as prisonish, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it doesn't really explain like what exactly what. But I'm pretty sure.
But it does come across as prisonish, but it's being run by this brother who's evil.
Yeah.
And he's basically trying to make them.
And you got to remember this is the United States, and they do like just turning everything in for profit. So prisons can be run in that kind of way where it's people just doing it to make money kind of thing. So, if you had enough cash, you could say, hey, I've got a building here, facility. I want to house certain people, on this occasion, criminally insane people, and, pretend that you're trying to rehabilitate them or help them. But actually, you've got some nefarious things going on, which is what's going on in this movie, because ultimately he's turning these people into trancers.
Yeah. And he uses a drug that he's farming.
Yes.
From the future.
Yeah. There is a kind of a because it's early 90s, it has that feel of is it green? It's called Green World, I think, the place, isn't it? Something like that. And our bad guy is pretending that he cares about the planet, and it's all about nature and helping the environment and all that kind of stuff. Kind of Captain Planet-y kind of feel to it. So that's kind of like our front, the smoke screen for the evil villainy that he's doing, which did make me go, how 90s of you, that you're using environmentalism as a plot device, basically.
For the evil dealers.
Well.
The drug's called Scurb 78. Which I like that name for some reason. I don't know why. It just sounds funny. Yeah. So we've got Richard. That's basically all we need to say about the plot. Really.
Yeah, I mean that's
apart
pretty much it.
It's 7 years later. It doesn't really say, but is it Herb, the baseball player, has suddenly got loads of money?
Yeah, I mean they
do brief over it. He has made the money somehow.
Investments or something.
And he's living the life as a rich tycoon who collects fire engines.
Yeah, he loves fire engines. Doesn't explain why, just does. And they're antique-y kind of things. But nice. Whatever, and he's living in a big mansion with Jack and Lena, who are now married themselves. So living a nice life of luxury and wealth and stuff like that. Living it up,
Yeah, until it all goes
until
wrong.
obviously the baddies come back, and McNulty ultimately is the first one to come back into Jack's life and to say, hey, now he's obviously he's the girl again, but she's a teenager now, so she's very sassy and very, hey Jack, I'll tell you what to do, and blah blah blah, smoking a cigar, and being all kind of tough and that tough girl kind of thing, which is fun, kind of like Lena's character, because Lena now, Helen Hunt character, is more grown up, more mature, hair's not all punky anymore, just got it natural and long, and wearing more grown up conservative style clothing of the time, the kind of thing we're going here.
She now looks more 90s,
and she and talking about they are married, talking about kids,
and talking about buying a house,
buying their own house, all of these kind of things, which Jack's like, don't want to go there for some reason, I don't know.
Well, I think it's sort of so that Jack sees himself as still on holiday. He's a visitor still to the past, where she wants him to...
Yeah, but 7 years at this point, so... But doing the whole man thing where he's like, I'm not sure if I really want to settle down with you, even though we've been together for 7 years.
I've chosen to spend this time because of you.
Classic stuff.
So his wife Alice is back, and they end up meeting and working out who each other are. And there's a lot of comedy with he's got two wives.
My two wives. Sitcom styly.
But I think there's some humorous moments of Helen Hunt walking in on them, and he's like, it's all her. When
there's that. You've got a bit of that. It's not much of it, and I think it's very light. It's done very light-hearted, in a very light-hearted way. I mean, this is quite serious. If you think about these kind of things, it's quite serious stuff, and be extraordinarily emotional. And there is some. There is certainly some emotion there, but it's very light.
Yeah,
because it's not the important element to the story.
But it is like. But then Helen Hunt sort of drums it home by a bit angrily, like, you're a bigamist.
Yeah, and doing some acting here. We've got some proper acting, drama going on here, which is nice to see.
Yeah, some proper acting by future Oscar winner. Who as well on the commentary of the movie, Megan Ward, who plays Alice, who went on to have a bit of a career, really, didn't she? Yeah. She's Helen Hunt was on a higher wage band, and the Charles Band's like, not then she wasn't. As in, no, she got paid as little as everybody else. But she's not in much of the third, which we'll talk about in another episode, hopefully. Yeah. I reckon she got paid more for a small role in that, just to be in it. Yeah. But she wanted to be in it because she enjoyed it, from what I can make out. But I do want to mention, we've mentioned Richard Lynch, but we've got one of the henchmen is Jeffrey Combs. Yes,
so he plays an evil doctor, but not so recognisable as a doctor. He has moments, don't get me wrong, he has there are some classic Jeffrey Combs close-ups of the face, doing a lot of face acting as he does so well. Yeah. But there's not enough of him in the movie for me.
No, it's like a stretched cameo, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that Barbara Compton also, the animator, has a cameo.
Tiny little cameo, plays an interview type person.
Interview TV host called Sadie Brady. Yeah. And that's a nice little cameo that it is her.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's right. But with Combs, a lot of people watching this movie will be a fan of him. You know, he does do a lot of small roles. He's got a small role in things like Frighteners and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but that's a great role though.
Yeah. But in a movie like this, you'd expect him to do more.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, fans of Reanimator stuff, would see his name fairly high up the bill, watch the movie, and then be disappointed.
Yeah. I am one of them.
See, I'm pleased he's in it, and the little he does, he's good. But yeah, you'd think more. Then they do get rid of him towards the end.
Yeah.
He's gone.
He's killed.
Yeah.
So can't come back. Not coming back unless he's got an evil twin or something.
Possibly, yeah. But I'm still pleased he's in it. I do. Anytime he pops up in a film or a Star Trek, he's always good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, it's always nice to see him, but just Yeah. I will say that I'm not a fan of this movie.
No.
Right. So it's fine. It's not an awful film by a long stretch. It's absolutely fine. But considering I like the first one very much, to me this is a sad kind of oh no. Playing it far too safe here for me. And even though it is a direct-to-video film, it feels so much like TV. and not great TV.
It has changed from Empire to Full Moon by this point.
Absolutely, it has.
Where I don't
and you can feel that.
I don't think they were making cinema movies.
They were
anymore.
not, absolutely. Which is why the Empire goes bust, is because of that, because they were making spending far too much money on things that they just couldn't get a return on.
Syndrome, just churning them out.
Yeah.
Possibly this was made then as a bit of a we need money. Let's have a.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
It's got different writers. It's Charles Band got someone else in to do the writing.
Yeah, which is strange because the original two writers, we didn't mention, they went on to write things like The Rocketeer.
They did.
And were involved
with
Flash. And the Flash TV series, which I think Coombs is in as well.
Yeah.
And Tim Thomerson played the Flash's dad in that, didn't he? Yeah, I think he did. Whatever. Yeah.
What is his name? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I think he did.
Yeah,
he's definitely in it.
Yeah.
And then they were heavily involved with making the video game The Sims as well.
I heard about that. Yeah, they did a lot of video game production.
Yeah. And they were meant to do the second one, and one of them was supposed to direct it.
Right.
And it fell through, and I think they all fell out.
Right.
So there you go. That's what happened.
There you go. So as far as not being involved, I mean, those guys did other movies that were Empire films, like Arena, which you've seen. I don't know if you've seen Eliminators, which I like very much.
Eliminators is great.
Yeah. So they'd done other work with Charles Band as well, around the same time.
Yeah. So I think it was,
or just after Trancers.
Yeah. My theory is they fell out over this because of what meant. For them, one of them to direct and that sort of thing. So I think
that's very possible. Yeah.
But I do still like this movie. This is where we differ. It's not as good as the first one. But it's getting the band back together for me. I like the addition of Megan Ward.
Yeah.
I think that works. It does feel safer. And even though in America, I think it's a higher certificate.
Oh, really?
I think it's an R in America. And I don't really know why. It doesn't feel as gritty or violent as the first one.
No. The bad guys aren't as scary. Like the Trancers. Because the Trancers in the first one are quite scary. The way they look.
Do you think possibly in this one they play it for laughs more?
I feel like that.
I like Richard Lynch. I think he's a better villain than the
Certainly a better villain, yeah.
But I think with him, they've got him for the face. They've got him for he was in so much in the 80s, villain-wise.
He looks like a bad guy.
Yeah. And in a way, I suppose he's just going through the motions. He probably, he's also no longer with us. And if he was asked his favourite roles, I doubt this would be in it.
Yeah.
But I think he does the job as well as anyone could with what they're given.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And I didn't get bored through the whole film. It's longer than the first one, but only by about 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah. But there's more. I do think this film is more padded.
There's more talking.
There's more standing around. There's lots of. I don't really want to get into the sort of boring, nerdy stuff of the way a film is shot, but there's far too much close-up faces when people are in dialogue. So going back from one face to another face, that's very TV.
Which is very interesting because literally in the first movie when
there's none of that,
and it ends with the Lena and Jack Deth walking and talking. On the commentary, Charles Band says that he doesn't like all this back and forth. He's a straight, let's just do it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he's gone against what he is. He has gone against what he said. And I don't know, it's like he's... Do you think... I've not read this anywhere, but do you think it might have been made as a possible pilot or something?
Maybe.
It does look TV.
Maybe. I just think that they were he was making it to be very safe. Yeah. But he wanted it to be able for enough people to go, we'll buy that, right? Because, Empire has gone under about 3 years before this film. And I'm pretty sure the production going forward for New Moon is all very safe, right? Let's make sure that enough territories buy this thing and aren't afraid of it.
He was paying off a lot of debts as well.
Yeah.
He bought Castle at one point, didn't he?
He bought a Castle, I think in 86 or 87 in Italy, where a lot of stuff is shot.
Yeah.
So from that period onwards, a lot of stuff was shot in Italy because it was, cheaper, I suppose, but the buying of the castle wasn't cheap.
No. Is that they used it in like Castle Freak and stuff like that?
Yeah, dolls.
Yeah. So he went a bit Nick Cage, didn't he? Just spent all his money.
Well, I think there were clearly some investments made for, they were investments made for the production.
Yeah.
Right. So they weren't just insane, buys. Oh, I'll buy a castle for no reason.
Yeah.
It was bought for to be, and it was used.
Yeah.
But clearly the investments didn't work out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Would you call this film? What is more of a modern term? They do a lot of fan service in it, as it ticks the boxes for fans of the. See, this is a thing where I differ from a lot, but I kind of like it when they do that,
right?
Because I am a fan of the original. I don't want a complete retelling of the first one, and I think a big thing for this is adding the wife, which is unexpected for me because when
I agree
because she's barely mentioned in the first one, and it does add that comedy to it. And I don't know, another thing I don't know if you do now, because I think in modern society, if you had the two wives, you'd just be like, you'd have to pick one of them straight away and you wouldn't have all this.
Yeah, probably. Or at least we'd have more of go into more of the drama aspect to it, the seriousness of the situation.
It's quite an interesting bit towards the end, where he does say to Alice that he loves Lena, and she just accepts it. All right, fine, and gets on with it.
Yeah.
Did you pick up on that?
Yeah.
But I think Megan Ward does a good job. She's very young in this, 19, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I could say we see her later in other films where she's better.
Yeah.
I think the character is either underwritten or she's not quite there yet.
I think she's very nervous to be in the film.
I think so, and I think the character is written in such a way that it's not giving her enough.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Do you think possibly she might be uncomfortable as well, being a 19-year-old in a romantic relationship with an actor who's by then in his 40s?
Well, I will say, there are scenes that by today's standards, some people might feel a bit uncomfortable with. Just a sort of 19-year-old girl kissing a guy in his 40s, like on the, passionately. It's a bit, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. For
as
me,
characters is explained.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I personally don't think, or it's not a problem, but I think I can see why some people would feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think 34 years ago, that was seen more light-hearted and funny.
Yeah, everything about it is considered light-hearted and funny.
Whereas if that was made now, they'd make that character closer to his age.
Yeah.
She'd go into someone who would be at least mid-30s, I'd say.
Yeah.
But that's as they say, of its time.
It is very much of its time. I'm not saying people shouldn't see it. I think people should watch it. If you like the first movie and you haven't seen this one, definitely see it.
Yeah.
But when I say I don't like it, it's based solely on the fact of how much I like the first.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's a fine film. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not very good, and it has too much of the annoying little things that annoy me, like the way things are shot.
Yeah.
Like where the camera is placed and things like that. Those kind of stuff, they do irk me, where I know that many other people just doesn't bother them at all.
You say that, I mean, there's certain movies, when they do get cheaper as they go on, it annoys me with certain franchises. Trying to think of one offhand now, it doesn't come to mind, but, when they go cheap sequels.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this franchise doesn't do that. I'm looking at. I've seen the third one once a long time ago.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I remember very little about it.
Right.
But looking at the reviews for the later ones, they're actually not atrocious.
Right.
I don't know if you've.
No, I haven't looked.
All I've done is look briefly, because I want to go into these and be like, that's the. And all I can say to you is none of them are very long.
No, I wouldn't have thought they would be.
So I'm interested to watch the rest.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we won't be too brutal on them. But if they are, if don't get me wrong,
I'll be honest about them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll definitely be looking for things that are, if they aren't great movies, I will certainly be looking for things that are good about.
Yeah, and if they're not, don't get me wrong, if they're not great movies, I'm not going to pretend they are.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm interested to watch them, but I'm a bit concerned because it's not, for me, the first movie especially, and the second, it's not just about Jack Deth. The other characters are very likeable. and I think the characters are going to slowly drop off as we watch them,
Right.
to the point of, in the very last one, I don't know, but I know Tim Thomerson isn't in it,
Sure.
but he's Deth in it, but a different
Right,
yeah,
another actor.
yeah, or gone into a different ancestor.
Right.
That's how I think they're going to do it.
Okay.
That's my theory, is that you can't do it without him. So hopefully, my theory, without looking into it at all, is it's gone into another ancestor, and that is someone else playing him. That's how they get around it. Because the last one was made in 2002, I believe.
Yeah, sounds right.
So he would have been in his 60s then, so probably too old. But then, it doesn't stop Harrison Ford, does it?
No, I know. I don't think he'd be too old necessarily, but maybe he felt he was.
Yeah.
Maybe just him as a person was like that.
Because he's an established character actor. He might have got a bigger movie, and they're scheduled to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it was the last one.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing, isn't it? So, but we'll talk about them at some point next year or whatever. We're not going to rush to get through these movies, are we? But we'll try to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting. Hopefully, it'll be fun, man. That's the point.
Yeah. I mean, it's been good watching these. Yeah. I'm not in any kind of way, like I say. This. Yeah. Trancers isn't Candyman for me, right? Yeah. Candyman's a very important, special film to me, but I do really like Trancers. And I always and anything Empire really. See, Full Moon not so much, but Empire, the 80s, they remind me of being little, and they remind me of being in the video shop, and they remind me of just that feeling of wonder, and oh wow, and I love that. I love that about it, and it still does that. When I put it onto, I saw it yesterday, and I had that feeling. It goes through me, that thing of that nostalgic feeling of just that's great. That's wonderful. I love that stuff.
Have you seen the Arrow release Empire box set? Because it's like a video shop. Yeah. And so that a lot of people feel the same way.
Of course.
And that's why there's still interest in these movies.
Yeah.
And that's why people are still talking about them. And I'm glad you picked this, because I'm enjoying rewatching them. And also, it times up quite well with the reissue of the first movie.
Yeah.
Which hopefully they might reissue some more of them.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for joining me. Yeah. And you can be heard on the King Street Cinema podcast.
I can.
Which is monthly. Ooh. And like that podcast, you can find us on Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube, and Spotify. We're on all of them. Ooh. So follow, subscribe, please like, share, rate. It helps. I'm told it all helps.
It does.
We don't do this for any profit. We just enjoy talking about movies, don't we?
Indeed.
And hopefully you've got something out of this as well. And comment, talk about the film to us. What did you think? Did you totally disagree? Did you think the second one is a masterpiece and the first one's a load of old balls? Hopefully you didn't. So join us again very soon. I think actually the next episode I'll be doing, Ian Pointer will be back.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to talk about Short Circuit 1 and 2.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So hopefully that'll be for soon. It might not be. You never know how it goes, but that's the plan. So really thank you for joining me. You do this just as a favour, really, didn't you? As a mate.
Yeah, well, I love it. It's great. Good fun.
So join us again soon, Squids.